Hey guys, welcome to this video. Thank you so much for tuning in, sharing in this now moment with myself and with one another. If you haven't seen these videos before, welcome, and welcome back if you have. My intention is unity and oneness. I want to just go into a little flow and kind of just play with the energies right now. So this is meant to be felt, not necessarily understood on a linear basis. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone. Happy gratitude month, we could say. Obviously, it's important for us to be grateful all year long, but it's a nice time of year to really hone in on what we are grateful for. And I've been in much more of a prayer space this month, sending gratitude back to my ancestors who are no longer living, and gratitude to all of my family and relatives that are still here, and sending it out to my friends and family. And I've been really called to become more involved in just sending out little notes of thank you and buying little gifts here and there, handing out gift cards to people who seem like they might need it more than I do, kind of thing. And that's how I'm planning on giving back this month in a very minimal way. And there's other people who are doing big things, like I mentioned before. My good friend and sister Kat, her and her husband donated their trailer to a family who didn't have a home, and it was their little vacation spot, and they didn't need it. So that was a big deal. So even if, no matter how big or how small, these are important things for us to start recognizing how we can have an impact on those around us who have less than we do, or who are really in a place of need. So that's my little share. I have about 15 minutes here to kind of share, maybe 20. We'll see how long I've got here. And as we drop into our hearts, as we find ourselves swimming around in the vessel that is inside of us, we recognize that what is inside of us is greater than we could have ever anticipated. Play on words. We are being called to dive in deep, to really focus inward, and in our words to share with us what we bring up from those depths of deep introspection. We are called to recognize the deception that many of us have been feeding ourselves or feeding on. And while this is a positive message, we invite you to look at what is happening around us that seems as if the messaging is far less than positive. We invite you to go into you, to dive into the truth that is within, the heart-centered recognition that gives us the ignition to charge through the debris that we are witnessing and feeling and looking at, that is all around us in the field, the instability that has been created, that is now in the process of destabilizing itself. And we will play with this for a moment. For many are seeing, witnessing, and feeling this instability. And it can rock our world, so to speak. It can make us feel as if our very roots are being uplifted. And that is true. For we are being uplifted from the roots of distruth, if you will, mistruth. We are being uplifted from those roots of deception that many of us have formulated our entire reality around. Many of us have invested time and feelings and emotions in these particular places and spaces that were once magical for us, once were exciting for us to participate in or to look at. And many of us are looking at this now revealing, if you will. We're watching this revealing, and it reveals much of what is disheartening in many ways. Yet we invite you to take heart, to take heed and listen within. For within each and every one of us is a heart beat, a rhythm that is not beaten down, that is a false interpretation, one might say, of that inner stimulation that has been deactivated for some, is being reactivated for others, and for others is beating true. For as we find the truth within, we recognize that we are stronger than that which we have been told. that which has been beaten into us, one might say. And many of us are moving out of the realm of submission, and we instead are submitting to our deeper truth of love, of light, of inner security, of the inner version of reality that can only come from within, that sees through the distortion that many of us have been wading through, if you will. And we will play with this a bit as well. For as we wade through this particular time period, time piece of reality that holds many I'm hearing disambiguity and also distortions, we are being guided from within. We have our own compass, our own compassion, our own compass of expression that is allowing us to feel through these fields of, so I'm just being shown like there's so much, wherever we look, seeing through the cracks. We're starting to see through all different variances and varieties and variations and versions of realities that we've all kind of maybe believed in at one time. And there's a big group of us that aren't looking at any of that because we already knew, right, that this is how reality was. There's a big part of us that are not impacted by what's coming up because we are focusing on a different trajectory. But I'm seeing bubbles of subsets of reality are all interfacing with each other. And this can create an interference in the wave pattern and what it is that we are seeing. So we are really being called to go back inside of us and to listen from that true essence of being, that true essence of being that is beyond misunderstood, if you will. And this is the play on words. For many of us have misunderstood that which we were perceiving, or we felt as if we were being misunderstood. And in that, we were sometimes felt as if we weren't receiving or being received. And this is also deceived. So what I'm being shown is like, this is a big play on words. Like, that's false because we are bigger than that. We're bigger than the idea that we have been misunderstood, right? And by the way, I'm speaking from experience. I still am oftentimes misunderstood or people do not perceive what I am trying to share, but that's okay. Rather than letting that allow me to, rather than feeling beaten by that or feeling as if what I have to say isn't, rather than not expressing myself and instead just kind of going within. So this is a play on words. When the guidance team is talking about going within, it's reigniting that spark of innate intelligence that tells us the truth of who we really are. And instead we can see through that which we have deceived ourselves. What have we told ourselves in the past? No one understands me. This isn't, the world is falling apart. And so, it's all going, what difference can I really make? There's no point in this. This isn't true. This is only what we've told what we're telling ourselves. So we're really being invited to ask ourselves, what are we telling ourselves that isn't true? In addition to that, all of the stuff that's coming up that we're learning about in the collective field through Hollywood, through the political realms, through the systems, whatever system it is, through religion. What is showing up for us that's reminding us, oh, guess what? We thought that was true, but it wasn't. Or let's see this from another perspective is what I keep hearing. And this will allow us to change our directive. It'll allow us to change our narrative, not only about what we're telling ourselves, but about what we're allowing other people to tell us. That we can now feel and listen with ears to hear and hear that that isn't quite 100% fully resonant, it doesn't resonate with us anymore, even though it might have at one time, because we are on a completely new precipice or piece It's a play on words too, because we're at peace with ourselves, right? Peace. Even though the world around us seems to be less than that, it seems to be less trustworthy, we'll say. It's okay. We don't have to, but basically what I'm being shown is by going within, it isn't going within as in when someone has been, I'm seeing somebody tucking their tail between their legs and going within and retreat. That's the word I'm hearing. It's not about us retreating. It's about us moving into our own sense of self-worth. How are we treating ourselves is a direct reflection of how we're treating other people. And then I'm being shown a treaty. Then we can say, all right, listen, peace, right? Peace begins with me. So that's that little mantra that my guides have, I learned when I was teaching yoga. Peace begins with me. Peace begins with me. Love begins with me. And you could, play with that a little bit. But we have to start with ourselves to go within so that that can be expressed in the creation, expression, and communication that we are then sending out into the field around us. So it's a challenging time. I'm being shown it's a little messy right now. So as we stabilize our frequency and we stabilize our own structure of reality that is, I'm hearing trustworthy and worthy of our trust. We stop, we go within, and we begin to reform and reconfigure where we are putting our trust, and recognize that we cannot continue to put our beliefs in systems that are no longer part of the truth of the entirety of the system. So I'm being shown infinity, right? I'm being shown this infinite loop that we are interweaving with finite versus infinite. So many of us at one time believed in something that was not infinite. It was finite, and it's starting to break down, or it already has broken down. And we are now looking at the remnants, right? The remaining pieces. And it can be strange, because now what? Now where do we go? Now who do we look to? Who do we look towards? And again, I'm hearing which words, 2 words are we going to speak in order to speak into being our reality. And it comes from us, right? Making the choice to, I'm in flow, so I'm just kind of playing with all these words. It comes from us making the choice to move forward and to recognize our own patterns that are coming up. Then we can recognize the patterns of distortion inside of us. Then we can recognize the patterns of distortion outside of us. And we begin to reorganize based on a new sense of who we are, the truth of who we are, not who we've been told we are, not who we've been told we should look towards or we should trust. And we begin to recognize that there is no one person, place, or thing that is greater than us, for we are all part of this. And I'm hearing the trust, like the bridge. I did an article on trust so long ago on my blog, which I haven't updated in a while because I've been busy, but I will start updating that again. And it was called Building Trust. And I was just being shown that this is a whole new branch of reality that we're co-creating. So we're being called during this time to recalibrate. This is a new caliber of co-creation together. And it is messy because we are bridging together our counterports, so to speak, our counterparts, and we are countering these parts that we are all playing. We are countering that which is part of the frequency band that we are beginning to move away from. And so as we balance this out, during the imbalance that we feel, it is a precarious act of acting from our heart to move forward in acts of courageousness and not by the principles that we have been told are courageous. We begin to take acts of kindness that come from the heart, that are not based on a consortium of belief systems that were held together with the flimsy display of a green screen of reality, saying, look over here. We begin to look from here. We begin to see with eyes to see, ears with ears to hear, and we listen with a deep inner knowing, with the deep inner reckoning, recognizing the reckoning, not based on a counterintuitive methodology of judgments and so on and so forth. Instead, we come back into a system that is now balancing out through a new truth of the inner scales, the true scales. I'm being shown light as a feather, and the I can't remember the Egyptian goddess where of the on the other side where they measured the heaviness of the heart. And I'm being shown this isn't just about us being good people. It's about us not judging ourselves. Because if you're heavy in your heart by thinking that the world is falling apart and nothing I do is going to make a difference, that is not a lightness of being. That is a belief that is laden, that I'm hearing, it's a play on words, with heaviness. That is an energetic sound that essentially creates a disturbance in the patterns, which is exactly what many people are trying not to do. And it's almost a subconscious weight that is being placed on many people unnecessarily. And this creates, it weighs down our access to the higher realms, to the higher forms of thought, to the higher genius that is inside of us, to the higher capabilities and compatibilities. It makes us incapable and uncompatible with the higher truths, which is we can build this together. We are doing it. It has already been done, even though it really doesn't look like it, because we are so used to looking at things through a particular lens. And as that lens gets removed, as certain things come up that we really didn't realize were true, we recognize that the deeper truth is that we are all one. We are all one energy that is expressing itself in a diversity of ways, right? In a myriad of many different infinite ways of being. And so when we keep coming back to, well, it's all inside of us, then it makes us responsible. Not saying that we're responsible, it's directly for causing, let's say, a war in another country, but we are directly responsible for how we treat ourselves. We are directly responsible, and I'm not here to get into, well, yes, we are responsible for that, or we are not responsible for that. We are responsible for our own actions. And we may not have control at this stage of what's going on in another country, but we do have control on how we view that, how we respond to it, how we interact with each other, how much compassion can we express by giving to humanity in a positive way without creating more heavy energy, judgment, despair, anger, retribution. Because I'm hearing it's retribution, distribution. That energy goes somewhere. Even if it's something we are fighting within ourselves, it's going to energetically create a frequency bandwidth around us. And it has an impact on our neighbors, our coworkers, our family. And I'm being shown that I know some people are like, well, what about how they're treating me? We cannot control how they treat us, but we can control how we respond to their behavior. And if we can respond from a place of strength and inner stability, and not buy into, give value to, or believe in what they believe and how they're projecting their belief onto us, in that moment when we recognize that's what's happening, we're seeing through the distortion. We're seeing a reflection of where we've maybe been distorted before or misunderstood. And we can come into a place of greater compassion And it doesn't mean that we're going to sit there and take that, especially with the holidays right now, right? But it also means that we can now say, all right, I'm going to digest that, integrate that in my own reality. And that allows me to have a greater impact stepping forward to neutralize that. We're not feeding it. And sometimes we are, right? It triggers us. It triggers our own sense of, well, who do you think you are? And we can say, I choose not to have this conversation. Or you know what? You're entitled to your belief. And as long as you're not harming me, if they're saying mean things, they can only harm us with those words if we allow them to. So we walk away. We don't allow them to speak that way, meaning it's not something we necessarily have to take on as our own. We can neutralize it by saying, you can feel however you want to feel. That's not necessarily, I don't agree with that. And we can agree to disagree. Can we move on? Now, can I help you with something instead? Can we change the subject? Where can I show up in opposition, which means neutrality, to what they're doing? And I don't mean in opposition. There's a play on words with that. We may have opposing views, but that doesn't mean I have to come back with an equally charged frequency and fight against what their projection is. Because that movie reel that's going on in people's heads, it isn't real, but they think it is. We think our movie reel is real, right? We think what we're seeing is real because it is to us. So we all have to we've heard this a lot, stay in our own lane. And that doesn't mean telling somebody else to stay in their lane. And that makes us right because we're telling them, stay in your lane. Maybe if it's your spouse or, someone that you can say that to. But even doing that in an aggressive way or a passive aggressive way has an energy attached to it. So sometimes it's just us recognizing that that person isn't in their lane. Sometimes we do have to speak up because we're being verbally abused or something. And sometimes we just have to walk away or say, I'm not going to play your game. It's not for me. Can we shift into maybe a different pattern? Sometimes it's difficult for us to stay in our lane, and recognizing that we all do this from time to time is really important. And by the way, I'm laughing about this because I've seen so many people lately say, you need to stay in your lane. And they're doing it in a very aggressive way, which technically means they're not staying in their lane either. So we all do this from time to time, right? It's more like, okay, I recognize that this person's stepping over their bounds. I'm going to say thank you, but no thank you. And in doing so, it neutralizes the situation. And sometimes we are called to speak our truth, but a lot of people are utilizing social media as a platform to project their own opinions. And sometimes we don't need to engage, is one of the messages that's coming through. And by doing that, that is us staying in our lane. That is us saying, you know what, I'm going to work on me. I'm going to work on what I feel is important right now. And it's going to be through this path. It doesn't have to be following this particular dialogue. Boy, I just went into like 10 different spaces as usual, but I'm going to end on that note and just share that the energies are very conducive to us really going within right now from my perspective and just finding that heart center so that we don't get pulled into other people's tornadoes. And there's a lot more coming through. I'll share in another video. I wanted to talk a little bit about fear. That's a little series I'll be sharing, and we'll go into that again. But in the meantime, in love and light, namaste.